back home, back in the podcast studio. I love saying that about my spare room. It just makes it feel so much more valid, you know?
Well, it's something to reference when you get audited from the CRA for writing
I
off
was just going to
33% of your
say,
rent.
as far as the CRA knows, this is a podcast studio and an expensive one at that. All right.
Yes, exactly.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Walk Off. This is the Friday show. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. This is the flagship show. You know, we're pushing 500 episodes. I don't know if you saw that.
It's
Isn't
crazy.
that crazy?
We're spring training away from starting our 4th season of this show.
Unreal. Who would have thought? I honestly never would have guessed we would have lasted this long, buddy.
Yeah, I never thought we'd be talking to players on the team or Mark Shapiro or any of this.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's wild.
It is very cool. Speaking of players on the team, we do have Damiano Parmigiani lined up for next week. He says Tuesday, Wednesday. He just got to Florida.
Okay.
Chad Cheese Dallas also is settled in Florida. The cheddar. So we're going to have him back on sometime next week. Haggy, I'm waiting for him to just get back to me on a date. He did confirm that he definitely wants to come back on the show, and I'm excited to just talk about that debut of his because I can't.
What an emotional roller coaster, man.
To the point, dude, I want to put it as like almost a minor story point in what we're writing. You know? Like just that idea of like this guy who like grinds it out for 9 years, needs to
has a position change.
To pitcher. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Finally makes the majors and then pitches 7 pitches and blows out his oblique. Like just
George R.R. Martin couldn't have written it any more dramatic himself. So
exactly. Red Wedding. Step aside. Okay, lots to talk about today, even though we are scraping the bottom of the barrel. But the Blue Jays, I don't know, what would you call Vladdy? Their cornerstone? Maybe not quite, but I mean, definitely the guy they thought would be the cornerstone. They took him to arbitration over $1.7 million.
I think he's still our cornerstone. You can be disappointed, but he's still like...
The success of this team still relies on whether or not he can pull it out. Exactly. So we'll get into Vlad's arb case, the Yankees fans. So the next, we will get into a bunch of Blue Jays stuff, kind of a roundup, if you will. Otto Lopez was DFA'd. Yariel Rodriguez finally had his deal announced, and it's a little different than we originally anticipated. Yankees fans lose their mind over Vladdy signing Kevin Durant's Blue Jays jersey for Kevin Durant. They exchanged jerseys, and Vladdy wrote something that Yankees fans, man, Vladdy is so in Yankees fans' head. It makes me laugh so much because I'll be honest, man, when a player puts on the pinstripes, I just don't like him automatically. But I don't obsess over Yankees players quite like Yankees fans get squirrely over Vladdy, you know? Yep. So we'll dig into that a little bit. Jeff Passan reigniting the rumors about Cody Bellinger coming to the Blue Jays. He said nothing except that he's a good fit, but of course now that
that the Jays are desperate.
Yes, and that the Jays are desperate. Justin Turner. Read a really interesting article from Nick Ashburn on Sportsnet about what a unicorn Justin Turner already is at 39 years old. And we're really hoping that this old man has one more year in him of defying Father Time. Very few players are as successful as late into their career as Justin Turner. So we'll dig into that a little bit. And then we'll end on the fact that, hey, yes, the Super Bowl is on Sunday. Pitchers and catchers reporting in LA today. The Jays on the 14th, along with 17 other teams. Every team is kind of reporting just between today and I think the 16th is the latest. So baseball officially starting. And what a great way to start the show. So let's dig in. By the way, I know I had a couple people reach out about Mailbag. And basically the question was, how do I get my question on? And I mean, I know what they meant. They meant, how do I get my question on without joining Patreon? And that's 100% fine. We honestly just appreciate the views and you guys just following along with us. You don't need to join Patreon. If you do join Patreon, that's an automatic bump. $4 a month. It doesn't matter how many times you write in. You can get on once a week. I know that was one of the comments was like, well, the Patreon, some of them are on almost every time. It's like, yes, that is the advantage of Patreon. But
you're explaining exactly what the benefit is. So you figured it out. Good job.
You figured it out. You figured what we're doing out. Yes. Yeah. So we do try very hard to get as many different comments on as possible. You can literally drop your comments in YouTube. We normally get to 1, 2, 3 of those every single mailbag. You can DM us on Twitter. We're very active on there. That's at Walk Off Podcast. And you can shoot us a message on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. So those are kind of the best ways to get a hold of us. Again, we do get hundreds of messages and comments and questions every single week. So please don't take offense. All right, we'll move on from there and get right into this. So Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was taken to arbitration just yesterday. And I mean, the big question to me, man, was why? I really didn't understand this one. Sorry, he was taken to arbitration on Wednesday. And honestly, Adam, I figured right up until Wednesday, literally before the arbitration hearing, I still somewhat felt like this was just the Bo Bichette going down again. Some of you might remember last year, Bo Bichette was after $7 million in arbitration, and the Jays offered 5.1. Again, it was the largest gap in arbitration. And so the way arbitration works, just a reminder, is once you officially announce you're going to arbitration, it's between those two numbers. There's no middle of the road. There's no negotiating. The player puts their number out. The team puts their number out. The arbiter comes in and decides from there. And there's nothing you can do. You need to go to arbitration unless you go to a multi-year deal and start buying out other years of arb, and then you're back to the drawing board. And that's exactly what happened last year with Bo Bichette. You'll remember, instead of going 5 years and arguing between, 5 million and arguing between 5 or 7 million, they just bought out all 3 years of his arb for like $30 million, a little more than that. I think it worked out to 11 million AAV. And I just thought that's what was going to happen with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And it didn't wind up happening. So the Jays had put forward 18.2 million. Vladdy had put 19.9 million.
Sorry, what did the Jays put out? 18?
18.2, yeah.
18.2. And he went
so
with
there's a 1.7 million in difference there.
Yeah, it's what did he get in arb last year? Was it 15?
Maybe just look it up. I think it was 14. Okay. It was like a 3 million. Yeah, maybe just double check there for me. What is interesting is that Vladdy all the way along has really been a great comp with Pete Alonso in New York. Yes, Alonso was more consistent with his home runs, but if you just look at their careers, their home run numbers match up pretty closely, the type of player they are, who they are at first base defensively. So Pete Alonso accepted on January 11th the Mets offer of $20.5 million. And the arbiter obviously just felt that he was closer to the Pete Alonso comparable than whatever the Blue Jays were trying for at 18.2. So I'm going to ask you a question here, Adam, because I can't really wrap my head around it, and I could be wrong on how I'm viewing this, but I feel like there's only 2 reasons that they would go to arbitration with Vlad over this. And it's that number one, they either don't want to sign him long-term and have kind of hit a wall where they have decided they just want to spend as little money on him the next 2 years as they can. The other one is also feels negative, which is they're sending him a message that they're not pleased with how he went about his routine in 2023, and that they're not going to bend over backwards for him until he bends over backwards for them. Am I wrong? Tell me why it's not one of those two, because I don't want it to be one of those two things. And for everyone on YouTube, feel free to drop a comment here too. We'll address this in Mailbag.
Yeah, I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, look, he had what last year was worse than the year before for Vladdy, right?
Yes, substantially.
He's continuing a downward trend. Like arbitration goes, he could hit under 200 this year with 11 home runs, God forbid. And his arbitration next year is still going to be worth more than 19.9. Like it's going up.
He still gets a raise. Absolutely,
regardless.
how arbitration
might only be
works.
21 million, like it, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be less. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there has to have been some. I feel like they must have offered a number that they thought was fair. Look, based on your performance, you're in a later arb year, so yes, you're getting a raise, but like you've had the worst year of your career.
Mhm.
So you're going to get a $4 million raise, not a $6 million raise. They must have thought it was fair or reasonable. Obviously, he has a different number in mind, but I think once you put your numbers out there, you don't flinch. Like I don't either side. I don't blame for not flinching and saying like, no, like the reason that we gave you this number in the first place is because this is what we thought was fair.
Mhm.
You know, if Atkins had offered whatever it was, 18 something, and then Vladdy goes, no, I want 19.9. And then Ross Atkins goes, okay, yeah, no worries. Here's 19.5. How's that sound? And then Vladdy goes, oh, so you were lowballing me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that's almost worse to be like, we'll give you up to 20. If you want 20, we'll give you 20, but we'd rather only give you 18. So we're going to lowball you. I think that's better than just saying like, we genuinely think you're worth 18. That's our honest evaluation of you. So we're going to give you the most that we think you're welcome to, that you, whatever. We might have different
baseball is so interesting with the arbitration idea because it's the only sport that does it, where they're like, listen, before you're a free agent, we're going to give you the opportunity to completely sour the relationship, right?
Give you 3, maybe 4 chances to really hate each other.
Now, I know it's probably a bad comparable because Marcus Stroman has had a chip on his shoulder his whole career. It's one of the reasons why he has succeeded as
You think it's because he's so tall? What do they call it? Tall man syndrome?
Yes, the tall man syndrome that Marcus Stroman has. And it did really sour the relationship when he went to arbitration. He really felt slighted. And we always talk about how Vladimir Guerrero Jr. grew up in the baseball world. And so you cross your fingers and hope that because he has operated with a business sense all the way through, that he understands.
He's not taking arbitration personally.
Every single player goes through this, and he takes it like a big boy. That's what you're hoping. Although it was kind of interesting that the Blue Jays had an unusually busy caseload this year. So they had 12 players that were eligible for arbitration. And Vlad was the only one that went to a hearing. So you can take that as a positive too, right? That they did come to terms with the majority of the cases that they had. And of course, the highest money one was the one that took an arbiter coming in to decide. So again, this happens to every player. You hope Vladdy's a big boy and that this doesn't sour any relationship. You hope Vlad comes out and humbles the ball, right? Has a huge year coming into his final year of arbitration, which would be great for him because he'd get a bigger deal. And maybe it would show some, the organization, it would give them some surety to extend. Because I think that's the big thing with Vladdy. We keep watching these guys on other organizations, Bobby Witt Jr. with the Royals, the most recent, these young stars being given these long deals, and everyone in Toronto, I think you and I included in that, Adam, keep going, when are we going to see it with Bo and Vlad? And I think what has happened with Vlad is that this organization there's too many question marks. So if he can have a big season, might go a long way.
Might go a long way is right. You know who's up for arbitration next year? Be interesting to see how it plays out. Should have been up for arbitration this year if he didn't suck enough to not accumulate enough service time. Is Alek Manoah. How do you think that arbitration goes out?
Honestly, I think if there's two ways this goes. Alek Manoah excels again, is a number 3, number 2, maybe even a number 1 pitcher again, and the Jays move him. Or he stinks, has no value, and the Jays let him rot in the minors till he either figures it out or has enough value where they can move him.
So you think, and I'm not arguing,
I think he's gone.
You think he's gone at the end of this year? He's either rebuilds his value and we're like, thanks for the prospects and good luck, Alek, but that relationship is toast. Or he's not worth anything and his career's over, basically.
And I could be wrong. I kind of hope I am.
Yeah. No, I mean,
it depends. Does Alek hold a grudge? He's upset about the way things went down.
Yeah, I mean, here's how you could solve that. Like, if you really wanted to bury the hatchet, if there was a concern over whatever, right? Because
buy his RBers out.
So okay, the way his service time played out last year was the Jays didn't gain a year of control. Like, he still goes to free agency at the same age, whether he played all of last year with the Jays or what actually happened. But it does make the difference of him getting 4 years of arbitration versus 3 years of arbitration.
Yes.
So that means 1 extra year at the league minimum, right?
Look at what this 1 extra year of time did for Vladdy.
It's a thing. It's an extra like $20 to $25 million potentially, right? Like,
in total,
because
yes.
You're trading like years 1, 2, and 3 for like a superstar are generally like $3 to $5 million in year 1, in the teens for year 2, pushing 20 for year 3, and then like Juan Soto got 31 million. I think that's the high water mark for the final year of arbitration. But like in that mid-20s range. So instead you're eliminating year 4 at 20-ish million. Even on the low side for Manoah, like if he bounces back and whatever, is probably at least 15 to 20, right? So you remove that and you replace it with an extra year of pre-arbitration at like 800,000 is what you're doing, right? You're shaving $19 to $25 million out of his bank account. So I guess, one way that you could just bury the hatchet is to give him a Bo Bichette. Like, look, we'll just buy out your ARB.
Yeah.
Here's $60 million over the next 4, or whatever the math works out to, right? Here's $45 million for the next 4 years or the next 3 years or whatever. And then we're good, right? And he goes, okay. And you just give him back the $18 million that he would have lost from having a 4th year of ARB versus a pre-ARB year. Whatever the total is, right? Or in first year of ARB, you start him at 10 million or whatever, and you just go, look, we still like you. We realize you got a raw deal, or we weren't doing it to cut you out of $20 million or whatever. Like, he has to recognize he played himself into that hole. It's unfortunate the way it worked out, but I think you're right. Like, I think it is, if he has a bounce back,
the performance part is on him, like 100%. And if he cannot take responsibility for that, then I think that's another reason why the organization would be all right with
the red flag. It's a personality red flag. I mean, it is different if it was happening with the Oakland Athletics or the Cincinnati Reds or someone who like wasn't in a contending window and was like, wow, we can just grind it out. We're only going to win 75 games anyways, so let's just let them figure it out. But like we were just in a position last year where like we can't just set every 5th game on fire and be down 11 runs in the 5th inning. I mean, we can't keep doing that.
Let's face it, Adam. Had Alek Manoah even regressed to a level of a 4 ERA, remembering that he did finish 2022 with 3rd in Cy Young voting, and an ERA under 3. So that's still a fairly large regression, right, of 1.2 on his ERA. The Jays would have won like far more than 89 wins. They would have been a 92 to 95 win team had Alek Manoah just been serviceable.
Yeah.
Um,
Alek Manoah
he's
getting
going to.
traded.
And
That's
one thing to keep in mind, everybody, is we still don't know. Like, this is the thing, right? This is still so much speculation. So I do hate getting too into the weeds with Alek Manoah because he hasn't come out and said anything. He's kind of done the right thing and the big boy thing and kept his mouth shut on this whole thing. So it's just speculation that the relationship has soured. But the speculation is coming from people fairly close to the situation. You know, like you're hearing guys like Ben Nicholson Smith say, yeah, things aren't like, he was on the show and we asked him. And he was like, yeah, things aren't the greatest. He left it at that, right?
Yeah.
He didn't get into details, but I mean, it's just straight up being acknowledged by reporters in the system that things aren't great.
Yeah. Oh, man. I think
Relationships can heal easily with money. Like, that is one thing about professional sports, right? Is like, if you're going to pay up, you know what? All is forgiven.
if Alek Manoah had, I mean, if he comes into spring training next week and he's like, I don't care how big he is, but if he's conditioned, like if he's healthy and he's firing on all cylinders and he has a great spring training, opening day starter.
I think
That's Gary Gossman, right? Yeah.
Old Gary. He's going to be
Are
our
we
opening day starter, I think.
Are we starting on the road?
Yes.
Well, there you
Yes,
go. He could
because
be our home opener then, right?
There you
He
go.
could be our number 4 guy. And you go, Alek, you're our home opener. Tip of the cap. Here's the ball. Don't blow it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Or you shelter him in every possible way from any sort of pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, what's the
Lots of
Jays
different ways to
schedule
go about
look
it.
like to start? It's
So a few things.
Start with the Rays for 4, Houston for 3, New York for 3. So 10-game road set to start the season.
Well,
we're coming home on April 8th, and we got to Seattle. Oh yeah, Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
Reynolds. Cool.
So a little bit of a Jays roundup here. A few things coming out this morning. Ben Nicholson Smith tweeting out that Yariel Rodriguez officially a Blue Jay. We've been waiting for this to be official. Obviously, this has been something Blue Jays fans have known for about a month now. The news of Cuban pitcher Yariel Rodriguez joining the fold in Blue Jays land, but the Yariel Rodriguez deal is official. Notably, it's announced as a 5-year, $32 million deal, not previously reported as 4. So, what does that mean? If you break down the AAV over 5 years, it's actually a $6.4 million deal, which makes it a lot more palatable for him to be a bullpen pitcher. That price tag really lines up with what the Blue Jays were paying Jimmy Garcia, right? $6 million a year. So now, Ross Atkins did come out and say Yariel brings a diverse arsenal, impressive athleticism, and ability to get swing and miss. He adds starting depth to our pitching group and has a chance to impact our major league team in multiple roles. So we already knew that they were probably going to stretch Yariel out as he finally figured out his paperwork and visas to get to spring training. So that is why they finally have announced this deal, is that they were waiting for that to come through. I know that Sean Lecomber and I were talking about that last Friday, was just the struggle he was getting into Canada and the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So that problem is over. They've announced the actual deal. The fact it's 5 years is interesting because he hasn't played in the bigs. So even if the AAV is much more palatable when it comes to a bullpen pitcher, if he stinks, it's still a big chunk of money to pay. So should be interesting to see what goes on there. Expect Yariel to have the chance to stretch out as a starting pitcher in spring and compete for that 5th spot with Alek Manoah. Should be interesting to see this guy who hasn't pitched in the bigs, how he performs. But the Blue Jays are very thorough when it comes to scouting And obviously they felt this guy is going to really contribute to the team. They've been trying to find that Ross Stripling piece since he went to the Giants. They originally went out at the trade deadline and picked up Mitch White a couple of years ago, and Mitch White just didn't work out. So I think that's kind of the role they see Yariel in, is the long relief, ability to maybe pick up a start here and there, pitch 4 or 5 innings when they need him to. I like it. 26 years old. Let's see what the kid can do.
Yeah, much needed starting pitching depth, flexibility. Best case scenario, it's Ross Stripling, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And honestly,
knife.
dude, I really like this move a lot more than what they were doing for starting pitching depth last year, which, what was it? Like Zach Thompson, Drew Hutchison, like guys that, yeah, there was potential upside, but for the most part, they're jobbers, ham and eggers that weren't really going to be able to contribute when the chips are down, right?
Ham and eggers. Oh, man. That's a good one. I like it.
Some more Blue Jays news, obviously, with Yariel being added to the roster and joining the 40-man. Somebody was the odd man out, and that somebody was Canadian Otto Lopez, who it's kind of too bad. He made his MLB debut with the Blue Jays September 2022, could play shortstop, could play some third base, had the ability to play second, had the ability to play left field, kind of that utility guy. He had a World Baseball Classic to remember for the Canadian team, was incredible. And then he got injured and just never really caught his footing again in the minors last season, 25 years old, and just the odd man out. So,
That's
it's a
the
bummer.
business.
The Jays just needed left-handed. They needed guys who could hit left. They needed left-handed hitters, bench bats.
Mm-hmm.
And Otto was injured while that was the case. And then when they needed another guy, when he was healthy, he was sucking it up. So, kind of how it goes in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing with this roundup here of Blue Jays news that I wish to touch on is just the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. exchanging autographed jerseys with sure-to-be Hall of Famer, superstar Kevin Durant in the NBA. They both exchanged jerseys and signatures. Vladdy put on the jersey 2021 All-Star MVP, and that sent Yankees fans into a complete tizzy. Just how pathetic, how horrible, what an embarrassment. This is like literally, and this was for days. This sort of stuff was coming out on Yankees Twitter, and it just kind of makes me laugh because he's in their head, man. Like, Yankees fans literally think about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on a regular.
Yeah. Wait, what did he sign it?
He signed it 2021 All-Star MVP because he won the MVP in the 2021 All-Star game.
That's such a... Was Kevin Durant at the All-Star game? Like, what's the significance of that?
I think...
Am I missing something here?
No, I think it was just Kevin Durant signed his 10-time All-Star or whatever it was, right? Like, they were just kind of like...
Okay.
I don't know.
Because it just seems like such a weird... glory days kind of a sadness to it, like put last year home run derby champ, yeah. I don't know, it honestly just I don't know why. I mean, I could see why the Yankees would be like, oh, it's pathetic, but as a Jays fan, I'm kind of like, you're 25, you're hanging your hat on a accomplishment you had 2 years ago. Like, second in MVP votes, Vladdy Guerrero. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, it's a little odd. But no, yeah, okay. If Durant puts something referencing All-Star games, then I could see if it's more of a like, haha, wink, wink kind of a thing. That's I'm okay with that more if that's the case. But
you know what? I'm aware that the All-Star game means nothing, and so does the home run derby. And maybe hanging your hat on either of those things is a silly thing to do. But I mean, you're sitting there with a top 10 basketball player of all time. I don't know. It seemed innocent to me. Like, it didn't seem like he was like flexing, you know, like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was pathetic.
I don't know. Just trying to see
You know
what.
what it reminded me of? It reminded me like the Yankees' obsession with Vladdy, whether this All-Star thing is valid or not, is so my best buddy in grade 11 was dating a girl that he like no home runs. We can use the old base scale here. No home runs, right? But he got to third base with her, and it was a very exciting time. Grade 11. Just very exciting. And then they broke up, and he became a little obsessed with her, right? Like not crazy obsessed, but obsessed. Like we all worked at the theater in Grand Prairie, and so sometimes we'd drive by the theater to see if her car was there. Little things like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is how I feel like Yankee fans are with Vlad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like, oh, well, what is he doing? What's he doing over there? I hate him. I don't even like him. But what did he say? Just feels weird.
It does. It does. I thought you were gonna say that your buddy from high school still like signs off on his emails and his letters as
Signs
like
off. He's like, yeah, dated.
Tom Jefferson led Grand Prairie High School in sexual triples 1999. I don't know.
I like that you got the year right. Good for you.
There you go. I had to do some math real quick.
You know what it is? I know that it's that Vlad performs well at Yankee Stadium, has his whole career. He hits 287 there. He's had 39 hits, 12 homers, 22 RBIs, 19 runs scored in 36 games in his career there. Hasn't necessarily burned the place down, but definitely admirable numbers at Yankee Stadium for a kid who's 25. He came out and said he would never play for the Yankees.
That's the biggest thing.
Oh yeah. And then
who are you to say you wouldn't play for us? We don't even want you. Is
exactly.
Yeah.
It's the douchebag at the bar who goes up and hits on the girl, and she's like, not in a million years. And he's like, well, guess what? You're an ugly slut, and I never wanted you anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So Yankees fans,
we're off the rails.
Hate Vladdy. We can move on from that. Okay, the last thing we'll touch on here before we get into the fact that spring training is right around the corner is Justin Turner. Read a really interesting article from Nick Ashburn in Sportsnet on the Sportsnet app just yesterday. And it really put into perspective what the Jays are trying to get out of this. And the fact that there's some real risk to this. So over the last 15 seasons, and that time span avoids the steroid era, because obviously in the steroid era, oh yeah, lots of 39-year-olds refound Robinson Cano all of a sudden. Like I know Cano wasn't the steroid era, but he did get busted at 40 doing steroids, and everyone was like, oh, that's why he's all of a sudden magically hitting like he did at 32. So avoiding the steroid era, okay, just 15 players have managed even 400 plate appearances at the age of 39 or into their 40s. The list of players is pretty impressive, too. They're not just nobodies. Adrian Beltre did it. First ballot Hall of Famer. Albert Pujols did it. Soon to be first ballot Hall of Famer. Alex Rodriguez did it. Would be a first ballot Hall of Famer had he not been roiding up. Carlos Beltran, possible Hall of Famer. He had a 46.5% on his first ballot this year. Chipper Jones, first ballot Hall of Famer. David Ortiz, first ballot Hall of Famer. Derek Jeter, first ballot Hall of Famer, right? Ichiro Suzuki, locked to be first ballot Hall of Famer. Ken Griffey Jr., first ballot Hall of Famer. Miguel Cabrera, probably first ballot Hall of Famer. And then Raul Ibanez, who really performed. I don't know if you remember that, Adam, but they used to play Werewolves of London.
I was just going to say, the way you said
Seattle.
that, maybe that song immediately came in my head. I wasn't aware that they did that in Seattle, but okay, I made the connection.
Fun.
So kudos to you and your howling. That was well done.
Thank you.
I knew exactly what you were getting at. You nailed it.
But man, you go down that list and you're just like, these are the guys. These are the only guys. Can Justin Turner be in that category? And the Jays need him to be, man. Like they
Is
really need him to be.
Justin Turner, is he a Hall of Famer?
No.
Okay. So how about he gets a little bit of Santiago Espinal's special diet going, roid right up. I don't care
Yeah,
when
right.
he gets suspended, as long as it's like mid-season, just enough to buy time for a Elvis to come up and
Yeah.
be competent. And then you're good. If the first half is roided up Justin Turner and then a healthy young buck in Elvis Martinez replacing him in late August, that's fine by me. Give me 400 at bats from Justin Turner on steroids, and then 200 at bats from Elvis at the end of the year. Oh, I like that. That's the plan.
So very curious on you folks, the grounds crew. We'll tackle this one on Tuesday for Mailbag. Where are you at on your confidence level that Justin Turner can continue to perform like he has in his late 30s? Are you confident?
Also, what would be a stronger reason for baseball fans to dislike Justin Turner? If he got busted using steroids or just the fact that he is a ginger? It's a toss up.
Let us know in the comments, everybody. Remember, we try and get to as many comments as we can.
All right.
No, but truly, fingers crossed that Justin Turner works out. I know we skipped a topic here, so we will talk really quickly about Jeff Passan and what he had to say on Wednesday about the fact that Cody Bellinger is still a fit for the Toronto Blue Jays. He didn't really add any kind of inside knowledge to this, more just talking about the fact that, it's been an underwhelming offseason for the Blue Jays and that they could really use another big bat in this lineup and that Cody Bellinger fits well. I mean, the thing with Cody Bellinger is that IKF would probably get fewer at bats because you'd probably play Justin Turner at third base more if you had the ability to throw those bats into the lineup. Do you want a 40-year-old playing more third base? I don't know.
Wait, hold on. Explain the reasoning for this to me. If we had Bellinger, then
So
Turner plays third base more?
I would think so, because if you have that extra bat, right? You have that extra lefty bat, you're probably going to have more lineups where IKF is not necessarily your fourth outfielder, is not necessarily filling in at second or third, and you probably are going to line it up so Justin Turner's playing a little bit more third base to have all of these bats in the lineup.
Is IKF a lefty?
I don't think so.
Okay, so in one scenario, we don't have Cody Bellinger. Let's call that reality.
Yeah.
IKF, starting third baseman. Justin Turner, DH mostly. Is that the
IKF
understand?
is a righty, by the way. Yes.
Okay.
I sorry, I just had
That's
to double check that.
So, but he's in the reality timeline, most likely third base most of the time. And then by
Yes.
adding an outfielder, all of a sudden we don't need him to play third, because like, why wouldn't we just have that regardless of, I don't know how Cody Bellinger,
because of the way you'd be manipulating the lineup to get his bat in there, right?
to
So
get Bellinger's bat in there?
yeah, exactly. So Bellinger's going to be playing in the outfield, probably playing first base a bit. You're going to see the DH spot used more for Vladdy, Springer, Turner, right? So like I'm not saying IKF won't play plenty at third base, but I think if you bring in Cody Bellinger, how can you possibly put IKF in the lineup 130 times?
Just because
He
he's our
just seems like
weakest bat?
yeah. I mean, it probably affects all these bubble guys. Like Davis Schneider is projected to get a lot of time in left field, right? He's another guy who's probably, if you bring in a Cody Bellinger, you're just going to see less from him. who knows, man? I could be full of shit and IKF could come in and literally blow all of our minds. And we're just like, why were we worried about this guy? He's completely capable where he is. He's hitting in the 6 or 7 hole and he's doing it better than most of the guys we had doing it there last year. Why was this even such a big problem? That's the dream, right? Like that's what you hope happens. But you're looking at manipulating the lineup, I'm just like, well, frick, I'd much rather Cody Bellinger's bat in there than IKF. How do we do it? Like you put Justin Turner at third.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely follow that logic. I just also still feel that way about every other guy relative to IKF. So like for me, it's just put Justin Turner at third.
That too, dude.
I'm like, play Justin Turner, even if he's defensive, a little bit of a liability. If he's hitting like Brandon Belt did last year, or like what he's capable of, I would just rather that and just have IKF be a 25th man. And like,
which Adam might be the case. I think there's some question.
Give me Davis Schneider's bat more than IKF, right?
I was just going to say that if Davis Schneider comes out and performs by June, we could see IKF more as that bench guy who is the utility dude who can play all over the place. But the question mark is, what's happening with Santiago Espinal? Is he even on the team this year? What's going on with Kevin Biggio? How many guys that can play 5 positions are we going to have on the bench? Right? Like there's just so it just makes more sense to pencil Justin Turner in at DH right now. But if you have another bat, there's already question marks with the guys on the team right now as to how much time IKF gets. So if you're going to bring in another guy, it just would stand to reason.
We have the term, I just want to coin a phrase here. Tell me if this works for you. We've got a utility man. Like the utility man is a thing. It's an established role, right? Your Kevin Biggios, like you said, we got 5 of them.
Yes.
How about this for an IKF? The futility man. The useless. Anyways. Our futility man. I'm going to start calling him that.
Let's let him get a few games as a Blue Jay before we completely turn on him.
IKF. That's Isaiah Kiner Futility. That's his name.
There you go. Exactly. Nailed it. All right. We'll wrap it up on a happy note for baseball fans. The season is upon us. Los Angeles Dodgers pitchers and catchers actually reporting to spring training today, baby. 18 other teams, including the Blue Jays, reporting February 14th, and all 30 teams will be in camp sometime between today and February 16th. Games starting February 24th for spring training, and then it's just a short month away before we are
into our most critical season in recent history. It is.
I would agree.
It's so pivotal. So,
I would agree. Exciting stuff.
Very
Super
good.
Bowl this Sunday, and it's officially baseball season after that.
There we go. We'll see you Monday for MLB Mondays. Mailbag Tuesday.
That's right. It'll be a big
Interviews start
Remember
Wednesday.
To drop your comments down at Walk Off Podcast on Twitter. Feel free to follow us. That would be great. We're pushing almost 2,500 followers now, so that's
get your questions in too for those interviews with Damiano Parmigiani, the Cheddar, and Hagen Danner. So
yes, exactly.
Drop those.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching the Friday show. Always appreciate it. We're pushing 500 episodes here, which is absolutely wild, and we wouldn't have kept doing it without you folks. So take care of yourselves. We will see you all on Monday for our Patreon special, and if you're not a Patreon member, well, then we'll just see you on Tuesday for Mailbag. Cheers.
Cheers.